at 2:15, I will personally present a petition before Lady Chief Justice Martha Koome against Justice Esther Maina for her removal from the judiciary for misconduct and corruption. Mimi mwenyewe nitaongoza because sasa unajua sasa si ametuuliza. Sasa tuko tayari, mimi ndio nitaongoza kwa executive.
Gachagua reliving his July 2022 incident where 202 million shillings was seized to the state after Justice Esther Maina ruled the money was proceeds of corruption having been acquired through dubious means.
Huyo judge through corruption declared my hard-earned wealth proceeds of crime without giving me an opportunity to be heard. Against the rules of evidence, where he who alleges must prove. We made an application to cross-examine the investigator akakataa kwa sababu anajua there is no case. Na evidence tuko nayo vile ilifanyika.
The Kenya Kwanza Battalion.
Mr. Speaker, I will request that we pause the video in the interest of time. In the interest of time, we pause the video. From the utterances, Mr. Speaker, it is clear that the attack on the judge is based on the decision the judge made in performing a constitutional mandate as a judge. It is clear that this is personal vendetta. It is clear that the Deputy President was threatening the judge. It is clear that this is intimidation and an attack on the independence of the judiciary. Mr. Speaker, the Deputy President is a president in waiting. And if he cannot, he's a president in waiting. And if he cannot protect and uphold the independence of the judiciary, that becomes a dangerous man. And he must be impeached for that particular reason. Mr. Speaker, I will therefore be requesting members of this House to find that this allegation has been proved to the required standard and approve the impeachment of Rigathi Gachagua from the office of Deputy President. On ground number 5, we have alleged that the Deputy President has breached Article 3.1 of the Constitution, Article 148.5 of the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, Article 3.1 of the Constitution is about and if he cannot, he's a president in waiting. And if he cannot protect to the Constitution, the independence of the judiciary, it states that becomes a dangerous man. For avoidance of doubt, as follows: that every person has an obligation to respect, uphold, and defend this Constitution. Members of this House, Article 148.5 is about the oath of and approve allegiance, the impeachment that the Deputy President took on assumption of office. On ground number 5, and in that oath, the Deputy President did take oath and swore to protect and uphold the Constitution. I have demonstrated in all the particular incidences above that he has not lived up to the calling in the oath of office. And therefore I'm calling this House to find that the Deputy President has not been upholding the Constitution and has run that every person has an obligation to respect, to his oath of office and defend this Constitution. In terms of his conduct, Article 148 is highlighted above in the allegations that I have already proven. And for that reason, Mr. Speaker, to find that ground number 5 is also proven. And in that oath, quickly running to ground number 6, and there is enough evidence, Mr. Speaker, to prove that particular ground. Ground number 6, in all the particular incidences above, is breach that he has not of the National Cohesion and Integration Act, and therefore I'm calling particularly this Section 13(1) and 62 has not been of the National Integration and Cohesion Act. A verse, Mr. Speaker, to his oath of office. The two provisions read as follows. Section 13 is highlighted above in the allegations that I have already proven. Reads as follows. And for that reason, Mr. Speaker, it is an offense for any person to use threatening, abusive, or insulting words or behavior where the person intends to stir feelings of ethnic contempt, hostility, violence, or discrimination. Section 62 on the other side provides as follows, that a person commits an offense when the person makes statements that are intended or are likely to stir up feelings of ethnic contempt, hatred, hostility, violence, or discrimination. Mr. Speaker, in proving ground number 1, in terms of violation of the Constitution on national unity, I did provide evidence that the Deputy President has been using the shareholder language, has been terming the Kenya government as a company. And as much as those words offend the Constitution, similarly, they offend the National Cohesion and Integration Act. And by the same evidence, I invite members to find that the Deputy President has breached those provisions that a person commits an offense. Mr. Speaker, when the person makes statements turning now to ground number 7, or are likely ground number 7, and this is important for members to know, hostility, violence, or discrimination, is that Mr. Speaker, serious ground number 1 to believe that His Excellency regarding Gachagua on national unity. I did provide the ground is about serious reasons to believe. Has been so the Kenya government all you need is to believe, and as much as all you need is to believe words offend the that he has committed crimes. Similarly, they all you need in law is to believe that regarding Gachagua has committed crimes. That is the threshold. If in your mind you believe that regarding Gachagua, by the narration that I'm going to give, has committed crimes, then you vote in the affirmative. Serious reasons to believe that regarding Gachagua has committed crimes under sections 45, 1A, 46 of the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act, and sections 2, 3, 4, 7 of the Process of Crime and Money Laundering Act. And Mr. Speaker, our allegation here is that the Deputy President, in the last 2 years, has amassed wealth that during the short period that I was able to do research, totals to about 5.2 billion, which is inconsistent with his known sources of income and with his last declaration of income. Mr. Speaker, it will be remembered that during the presidential debate, the Deputy President did declare that he was worth 800 million. It is also known by virtue of the gazettements by the Salaries and Remuneration Commission that he earns $1 million or thereabout per month, and therefore he needs to show where he got the money to amass these properties. The import of my allegation is twofold. Number 1, there is what we call unexplained assets under the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act. And number 2, there is money laundering. Mr. Speaker, in my motion, I have listed a total of 22 companies, 22 companies that I believe the Deputy President has been using, number 1, to amass, to award himself through conflict of interest, businesses in his office and in government. And number 2, to purchase properties using unexplained sources of income. Mr. Speaker, it will be remembered that yesterday during the televised interview, the Deputy President went through all the companies and they did not deny that either of them belongs to him. All he did was to say that he registered some of them before he became Deputy President. I am not interested in the time that the companies were registered. I am interested in what the companies have done in the last 2 years. And I will demonstrate that these companies have actually done economic crimes against the people of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, I have also listed properties. I have listed a number of properties that the Deputy President has purchased income within the 2 years that he has been in office. I have listed Treetops Hotel in Nyeri. I have listed Olive Gardens Hotel. I have listed Queensgate Serviced Apartments. I have listed Wamunyoro Investments land in Embakasi. I have listed the Aberdare. Interested in the time that the companies were registered. I am interested in what the companies have done. Treetops Hotel, Outspan Hotel, I will demonstrate Olive Gardens Hotel, that these companies and the Vipingo Beach Resort. Economic crimes against Mr. Speaker, you will be told. Mr. Speaker, I have also listed properties. The defense, I have listed a number of properties that some of the properties that I've listed do not belong to Rigathi Gachagua, but they belong to the estate of Nderitu Gachagua. Mr. Speaker, as you listen, please know that this man is not fond of telling the truth. And I will prove to you, and I want you to listen to me very carefully. that Mr. Rigathi Gachagua, it is true that he was one of the administrators of the estate of his late brother. It is easy to hide under the dead because the dead cannot come to give evidence. But also, there are documents. I have with me the joint will executors report on the status of the estate of Rigathi of Nderitu Gachagua as at 27th June 2024. This is a valid document that is part of our bundle of documents, and that also I have seen is part of the documents that came through public participation. And in this document, what the Deputy President has not told Kenyans, and listen to me, because the Deputy President actually committed another crime yesterday, misleading Kenyans. What the Deputy President has not told Kenyans is that in those 2 years, he is the one who has bought the properties of his own brother through coercion. I have with me, and I am not interested, I have no problem with people owning property. What I have a problem with, and this is what he needs to be explaining to us, where did you get the money to buy these properties? This is a big question. This is a big question. Mr. Speaker, you will be told that when I became Deputy President, I transferred my companies to my 2 sons. And my 2 sons are the best entrepreneurs that Kenya has ever produced. They are the best investors that Kenya has ever produced. And one day they walked into a bank and they got a loan of 600 million. Mr. Speaker, I have looked at the ID numbers of the 2 sons, and I can confirm that they are in their early 30s. I want Kenyans, Gen Zs, you were in the streets. I want Kenyans to tell me which Kenyan, 23 years old, can walk into a bank. Where do you get the security to secure 600 million loan? I started by saying all you need to do is to believe that His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua has committed crimes. And buying properties worth 5.2 billion within a period of 2 years is not reason enough to believe that he has stolen from the Kenyan Republic. What else then will be a reason to believe? If a 28-year-old can be alleged to have walked into a bank and gotten a loan of 600 million, what else is a serious reason to believe that an economic crime has been done? Mr. Speaker, at page 600 million loan. I started by saying all you need to do is to believe that I have therefore proven that the Deputy President and buying is the one who bought properties worth 5.2 billion within a period of the estate of his late brother. Is not reason enough. The source of funds to buy stolen from the estate is not known. What else then? Also in my bundle of documents, Mr. Speaker, there is a company called Cristo, and this is a very interesting company. This company called Cristo is the one that bought Aberdare Safari Hotel. And I have exhibited at page 122 of my bundle of documents a transfer document transferring the ownership of Aberdare Safari Hotel from the original owners to the children of the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua at a consideration of 535 million. Is the one who bought through coercion million. And this transfer, Mr. Speaker, was done on the 22nd November 2023, immediately after the Deputy President assuming office, and telling Kenyans that he found empty coffers. He was able, within 2 months, to buy a property worth 535 million in Nyeri. Which empty coffers did he find? And I have exhibited the other day at page 122. I have exhibited at page 118 the CR12 of the new company, which shows that his 2 sons are the directors. To the children of I have also exhibited the transfer document to show that actually the ownership of the company did shift was done on the 22nd November at a cost of 535 million after the Deputy President assuming office. And therefore, I believe I have discharged my burden of proof within 2 months. Mr. Speaker, yesterday, the Deputy President said immediately became Deputy President, he asked his children not to do business with government.
I have exhibited at page
But you will
1
realize,
the CR12,
because he's speaking from both sides of his mouth, you will realize that even in this transaction about hotels, Treetops belongs to Kenya Wildlife Service.
To show that
yes, it is true he has leased.
Company did shift.
But if you say that you have instructed your children not to transact with government, and then you lease an hotel owned by the government, are you not transacting with government?
To the required
are you not transacting with government?
Mr. Speaker, yesterday,
and therefore, the live interview by the Deputy President yesterday is a further ground for the Deputy President to be impeached. I can go on and on and on to show that the Deputy President did purchase Kuruwitu Home Resort at a cost of 250 million from the estate of his own brother.
Yes, it is true.
Mr. Speaker, you were told also
if you say that you
Vipingo Ridge
instructed your children not to transact with government,
Vipingo Ridge Hotel is a property.
Are you not transacting with government?
Within the estate of the late brother to the Deputy President. But I have exhibited
by the Deputy President
in my bundle of documents CR12. CR12 is a document that shows the company directors showing the children of the Deputy President as directors of Vipingo Hotels.
Home Resort.
The children of the
cost of
Deputy President are not listed in the will as executors of his estate. So one would wonder that because they are not listed as executors of the estate of the late Gachagua, then where do they come in terms of owning the Vipingo company?
Within the
it can only be by way of purchase, it can only be by way of money laundering. Mr. Speaker,
documents,
one other reason why I have provided the 20-something companies and the properties is also to demonstrate character. Some of these companies have not transacted. It is my prosecution theory that these are special purpose vehicles for purposes of money laundering and for purposes of preparation for money laundering.
Because they are not listed as executors
and therefore,
of the estate
one would wonder why the Deputy President would have so many companies
the Vipingo company
that are not active, except for the reason of waiting for a prime day for them,
Mr. Speaker,
to launder resources from government. Mr. Speaker, I have also listed many companies and suspicious transactions where companies were being paid as much as 100 million from the office of the Deputy President. They are paid in the morning, and at noon they are withdrawing the money in cash. You are aware that under our regulations, you cannot withdraw more than 1 million shillings from the bank. But I have listed in schedules where in a single day, as many as 10 transactions, cash transactions, were being done from monies that had been paid from the office of the Deputy President. These are serious reasons to believe that the monies were being withdrawn for suspicious
many companies and suspicious transactions.
And for that reason, Mr. Speaker, I believe I have discharged.
Were being paid as much as 100 million from the
I have discharged my burden of proof,
they are paid in the
and
morning,
this ground is proven beyond
they are withdrawing
the required
money
threshold, and it should be confirmed as a ground of impeachment.
You cannot withdraw more than 1 million.
Mr. Speaker,
but I have listed,
allow me to proceed to ground number 8.
Where in a single
ground
day,
number 8 is about breach of Section 132 of the Penal Code and breach of Section 129
that had been paid
of the Leadership
from the Office of
and
the
Integrity Act.
These are serious reasons
Basically,
to believe that the monies were
these
being
are about misleading the public.
Reasons. And for that reason,
Mr. Speaker, on this one,
I believe I have discharged.
I
have discharged my burden
on
of proof, and this ground
the evidence
is even beyond the
of the video
threshold
in the case of Justice Esther Maina, that the Deputy President did mislead the public that Justice Esther Maina was corrupt, simply because she had made a finding that was against him. Mr. Speaker, I also rely on a video that I'm going to play shortly, that the Deputy President did attack the National Intelligence Service in a televised television interview in Mombasa.
Mr. Speaker, on this one,
Mr. Speaker, in that televised interview, and you will see it shortly, the Deputy President misled the Kenyan Republic on several accounts. which I will discuss after the video has been played.
That the Deputy
I now
President
request
did mislead the public that
the
Justice
media
Esther
team
Maina
to
was
play
corrupt,
the
simply
video
because he had
on
made a finding
NIS in
that-
Mombasa.
That was against him. Mr. Speaker, I also rely on a video that I'm going to play shortly.
Where did the rain
That
begin to
the
be?
Deputy President did attack
Where did we
the
stop
National Intelligence
listening
Service
to the people?
in a televised television interview in Mombasa.
President William Ruto and I were the
Speaker,
darling of the Kenyan people.
In that televised interview,
By
that you
listening
see
to them,
shortly,
by engaging them.
the Deputy President misled the Kenyan Republic on several accounts, which I will
And
discuss after the video
as a
has been
government,
played.
we have
I now
established
request
institutions to ensure we
media
not
team
only listen to
play
Kenyans, but also genuinely
video
understand their concerns.
on NIS in Mombasa.
We invest significant resources in these institutions, particularly the National Intelligence Service, for this purpose. It is clear there has been a failure in the intelligence and advice we are receiving, particularly concerning crucial government policies. President William Ruto and I were the President of the Republic of Kenya today has admitted that it has come to his attention that the people of Kenya did not want anything to do with the Finance Bill 2024. We have established institutions to ensure we not only listen to Kenyans, but also genuinely understand. The President, we invest significant resources in has now agreed that we need to listen to the people. Particularly the National Intelligence Service for this purpose. And I sympathize with my boss, President William Ruto, because this information was an advice we are receiving. I know President William Ruto, had he known 2 months ago that the people of Kenya, the Republic of Kenya, today did not want anything to do with the Finance Bill, has come to his attention, he would not have asked that the people of Kenya did not want anything to do with the Finance Bill. Yet, we have an organization paid by the public to give him and govern such information. And that is where the problem is. Has now agreed. We have a dysfunctional National Intelligence Service. And I sympathize. Has exposed the President, the government, and the people of Kenya. Was not available to him. Had the National Intelligence Service had briefed the President 2 months ago about how the people of Kenya feel about the Finance Bill 2024, so many Kenyans would not have died. Property would not have been destroyed. Offices would not have been touched. There would have been no mayhem. But they slept on the job. It had to take people to die, property to be destroyed, protests across the country for the President to know the truth of what the people of Kenya feel. Yet, there is an organization paid for by the public to brief the President and the government about the feeling of the Kenyan people.
With the permission, Mr. Speaker, I request that we pause the video because we have already displayed the context. Mr. Speaker, the point I'm making here is simple. Now, this is the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. By virtue of being the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, he is also a member of the National Security Council. The NIS is also in membership of the National Security Council. And therefore, the Constitution has provided for where the Deputy President, in case he has any concerns, he can raise them within the official structures of government. Instead of doing that, Mr. Speaker, he chose to be reckless with complete disregard of the office, of the high calling of the office that he holds, the office of the Deputy President. It will be remembered that at this particular time, the country was at a security crisis, and inflammatory remarks would have led to the country disintegrating. Inflammatory remarks would have led to the social fabric of this country tearing apart. And therefore, by such doing, I am inviting the House to find that the Deputy President did mislead the public. The Deputy President did live below the expectations of the office that he holds, made unfounded sensational statements, and therefore that ground should be upheld for his impeachment.
And inflammatory remarks
Mr. Speaker,
would have led to the country disintegrating.
further to that,
inflammatory remarks
in
would
the
have led
oath of allegiance
to
to
the
office,
social fabric of this country
the Deputy President
tearing apart.
swore, and I quote,
And therefore, by such doing,
to refrain
I am
from
inviting the House
directly
to find that the Deputy
or
President
indirectly revealing such
mislead the
matters
public,
as shall
Deputy
come
President
to my knowledge
did
in the
give
discharge of
below
my
the expectations
duties
of the office that
and
he was,
committed to my secrecy.
made and
Mr. Speaker, as you would notice in that clip, the Deputy President says that he has been
And
told in
therefore,
confidence.
that ground.
Mark
should
the
be
words,
upheld
I have been
for
told
his
in
impeachment.
confidence by officers
Mr.
of
Speaker,
the following.
further to that,
And while aware
in
that
the
he took an
oath of
oath
allegiance to office,
not to divulge
the Deputy President
information
swore,
that comes
and I
to him in secrecy, he went ahead
to
and
refrain
divulged
from
that information.
directly
I'll be inviting
or
this House to
indirectly
find that the
revealing
Deputy
such
President
matters
breached his
as
own
shall
oath
come
of
to
allegiance
my
to
knowledge
office.
in the
And a
discharge
person
of my
who breaches his
duties
own oath of allegiance
and
to office
committed to my
is not
secrecy.
fit to hold the office of the
Mr.
Deputy
Speaker, as you would
President.
notice in that clip,
I
the
therefore
Deputy President says that he has been
urge
told in
members to find that
confidence.
this ground
Mark the words,
has been
I have
proven
been
to the
told in
required standard
confidence
and
by
upholded
officers
for impeachment.
of the
Under
following-
ground 9,
the
Mr.
following-
Speaker,
the
on
following.
gross misconduct.
And while aware that he took an
Gross
oath
misconduct
not
has
to
been defined
divulge information that comes to him
as the dereliction of
secrecy,
duty
he went
in the
ahead
Black's
and
Law
divulged
Dictionary.
that information.
Gross misconduct
I'll
has
be
been
inviting
defined
this
as
House to
dereliction
find
of
that the
duty
Deputy President
unlawful
breached his
or
own
improper
oath of
behavior.
allegiance to office. And a person who breaches his own oath of allegiance to office
Mr. Speaker,
is not fit to hold the office of the Deputy.
we have alleged that the Deputy President
therefore
did breach Article
urge members to find
151B
that
of the Constitution,
This ground has been proven
in his
to the required
utterances
standard and
against
afforded for impeachment.
the National
Underground
Intelligence
9, Mr. Speaker,
Service,
on gross misconduct.
and that
Gross
is incompatible
misconduct has
with the
been
high calling,
defined
dignified status, and the discretion
as the
required
dereliction
of the office of the Deputy
in the
President.
Black's Law Dictionary.
And because I had laid
Gross
basis
misconduct
in the
has been defined
foregoing
as the dereliction of duty
ground,
and lawful
I wish
or
to urge
improper
members, using the same evidence that I've adduced above, to also find that ground
Mr.
number
Speaker,
10 is also proven.
We have alleged that
Ground
the
number
Deputy
9, that
President,
is.
did breach
On
Article
ground
151B of the Constitution.
10, gross
his
misconduct
utterances
on
against
insubordination.
the National Intelligence Service,
We have
and that
the evidence of Mercy
incompatible
Wanjau in the
with
form
the
of an
high calling,
affidavit
dignified status
that
and the discretion
Cabinet makes decisions
required of the office
and the
of
Deputy President defines.
And because
I have
laid
video
basis
clips
in the foregoing
in Nyanza
ground,
where the President did
I wish
direct.
to
In
urge
fact, he
members,
said it is
using the
primitive
same evidence that I've
for
adduced
people
above, to also find
to
that
say
ground
that
number 10
certain sections
is
of the
also
country
proven.
cannot receive development by virtue of how they voted
Ground
in the
number
last
9.
elections.
On
And
ground
then
number
immediately thereafter,
10,
the Deputy President repeated
gross
his
misconduct
shareholder
on insubordination.
Kenya government company utterances, directly contradicting the
We have
President.
The evidence
In that
of
arrangement,
Mercy
Mr.
Wanjau,
Speaker,
in the form of an affidavit,
I am submitting that that is
that
insubordination,
Cabinet makes decisions.
and the evidence
and
that
the
we have
Deputy
tendered,
President
in the
defines.
interest of time, on
I have
record,
video clips
is enough to prove that
in
ground,
Nyanza,
and members
where the
should
President
be
did
able
direct.
to
In fact, he
approve
said it is
that
primitive
the Deputy President, His
for
Excellency
people
Rigathi Gachagua,
to
has been
say
undermining
that
his
certain
boss,
sections of the country
has
cannot
been
receive
undermining
development
cabinet,
by virtue of how
and
they
therefore
voted in the
is
last
guilty
elections.
of the offense of
And then
gross
immediately thereafter,
misconduct
the
in
Deputy
terms of
President repeated
insubordination.
His shareholder
Mr. Speaker,
Kenya government company utterances,
I come to a very
directly
interesting
contradicting
last
the
one,
President.
which is that
In that
the
arrangement,
Deputy
Mr.
President
Speaker,
has breached Article
I am submitting
151B
that is
and Section
insubordination,
34 of the Leadership and
and
Integrity
the evidence
Act.
that we have tendered in the
Mr.
interest
Speaker,
of time on record
In my bundle
is
of
enough to
evidence,
prove that ground.
I have the
And
affidavit
members
of Dr.
should
Andrew
be
Muller,
able
which I would
to
want
approve
displayed.
that the Deputy President,
Dr.
His
Andrew
Excellency
Muller,
Rigathi
Mr.
Gachagua,
Speaker, was acting
been
CEO of the
undermining
Kenya Medical
his
Supplies
boss,
Agency.
has been undermining
Kenya
cabinet,
Medical Supplies
and
Agency,
therefore
through funding
is
of the
guilty
Global Fund, did
of the
advertise for a
offense of
tender
gross
for purchase of
misconduct
mosquito
in
nets
terms
to
of
benefit
insubordination.
Kenyans. The tender was
Speaker,
worth about 3.7 billion.
I come to a very
In this
interesting
affidavit, Mr.
last
Speaker,
one.
Dr. Andrew
is
Muller
that-
avers that when he came to KEMSA,
151B and Section 34
and Mr.
of
Speaker,
Leadership
the
and
witness
Integrity Act.
is before the House,
Mr. Speaker,
but because this is
in
not
my
the trial
bundle of
chamber,
evidence,
We will not lead him in evidence, nor will he be cross-examined, but he's ready to be cross-examined when we go to Senate. He averred that when he was appointed as an acting CEO of KEMSA, and he came to office, he found the tender ongoing, and one day, the deputy president called him, threatened him, so that he could release a bid bond. In his testimony, he says that a company that was being fronted by the deputy president. If you allow me just to get where before the house, because this is important. This is not the trial chamber. At page 70 to 76, nor will he be cross-examined. But at page 70 to 76, when we go to Senate, he avers that when he was appointed as an acting CEO of my band of documents, and he came to office, he found the tender ongoing. Dr. Andrew Murwa, one day, the deputy president avers that threatened him. His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua called me from his mobile phone. The number is provided. In his testimony, on my mobile phone number, the number is provided, and pressured me to surrender to his proxy the original bid bond submitted by Sobika Impex for the above tender. At page 70, he told me that he would send a proxy to collect the original bid bond. At page 70 to 76, he goes further to state that Dr. Ikuno Rigathi, who is a son to Rigathi Gachagua, the deputy president, called me and sent me a WhatsApp message from his mobile phone number, which is provided, claiming to be acting for and on the instructions of His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua. The number is provided. He asked for Sobika Impex Private Limited's original bid bond for the above tender, which he said His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua was trying to collect from KEMSA. Annexed here to and marked AM1 are the screenshots, and I would like them, they are already displayed on the screen of those messages. He goes further to aver that Dr. Ikino Rigathi, His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua sent a one Ogora Wilson Okulo of national identity number that to collect the original bid bond submitted by Sobika Impex Limited. He concludes by saying that given the status, power, threats, influence of the people involved in the interference with the investigations and the cover-up of the irregularities surrounding the procurement of treated mosquito nets, I was constrained to surrender the original bid bond to Ogora Wilson Okulo. In short, members, please listen to this. In short, I was caught in a tricky situation, and there was nothing much I could do as a junior government officer against a sitting deputy president of the Republic of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, he concludes by saying this allegation was admitted by none other than the deputy president yesterday live on his interview or live on television. He did confirm that, yes, he called Dr. Molo. He also confirmed that he called him in relation to a bid bond. And he did confirm that the company called Sobika, the local representative of Sobika, is a company called Christo. And the company called Christo is owned by none other than Rigathi Gachagua and his children. And therefore, there was a direct conflict of interest that the deputy president, that the representative, the local representative of Sobika, which is an international company registered in India, is a company owned by the deputy president. And the deputy president is making a call regarding a tender to a junior government officer. I wonder how many other calls he has made. But I do not need to belabor this point, because none other than the deputy president himself did admit on live television yesterday that he did make the call. It was in relation to the bid bond, and therefore I urge members to adopt the evidence of Dr. Andrew Murwa as the truthful and factual evidence, exhibiting that His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua did interfere with the tendering process and also did interfere with the investigation into the same. His Excellency the Deputy President did inform the country falsely that no money was lost. Mr. Speaker, you would know that this tender was funded under the Global Fund. And the Global Fund, through letters that we have exhibited, did cancel this funding. And therefore, the Kenyan people lost up to 5 billion Kenya shillings and as well a relationship with the Global Fund, which is a major partner in our health sector. And therefore, to allege that no money was lost is false, because the Global Fund did cancel the tender, and also it affected our relationship in terms of funding from the Global Fund. And we had to do a lot of diplomatic work, going to WHO, going to Geneva, in order to restore our relationship with the Global Fund.
Under the Global Fund. And the Global Fund,
Mr. Speaker, lastly,
through letters that we have exhibited, did cancel this funding. And therefore, the Kenyan
I have rushed through the grounds because of the time allocated.
And as well,
I have endeavored to provide evidence
with the Global Fund,
that all the 11 grounds
in our health sector
that are proposed for the impeachment of His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua are merited,
because the Global
and there is
Fund
enough evidence.
did cancel
The work of this chamber
and also
is to
it affected
examine
our relationship in
whether
terms of
prima
funding
facie
from the
there is a
Global
case.
And we had
The
to do a
trial
lot of
chamber is the
diplomatic
Senate.
work,
And therefore, I want to
going
plead with
WHO,
members of this House.
going to Geneva.
It doesn't
in order
matter
to
whether you
restore
signed
our
the motion or you did not
relationship
sign
with
the
Global
motion. I have endeavored to persuade each
Mr.
one
Speaker,
of you
lastly,
individually that this country requires a
members,
serious leadership. And His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua is not part of that serious leadership. I have endeavored to persuade each one of you that this country requires leaders who can respect the rule of law. This country requires leaders who can respect the Constitution. And His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua is not one of them. And therefore, I take this time to implore on each one of you, besides our political persuasions, to realize that we want the best for our country. This is the country that we shall bequeath to our children. And if the country is destroyed by reckless leaders like His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua, there will be nothing to bequeath our future generations. And therefore, persuade each one of you, please vote with your conscience, vote with your, put Kenya first above your politics when you come to vote. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, members of Parliament,
requires a serious leadership.
if you listen carefully to His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua, and I did say at the time of giving my notice of motion, I have nothing against him as a person. But I was perturbed yesterday because His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua did insult members of Parliament. He insulted the intelligence of members of Parliament. There are members here who are senior lawyers. There are members here who are senior accountants. There are members here who are teachers. There are members here who are accountants. There are members, all of us are respected in our societies. The people of Kenya have elected us to exercise a constitutional mandate in this country. But His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua did say that most of the members of Parliament signed the motion without reading it. That is an insult to your intelligence.
Members of Parliament.
His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua, in the live interview yesterday, did say that Parliament is a theater of the absurd. In my training as a lawyer,
but I was perturbed yesterday.
He who insults the jury, he who insults the jury deserves no mercy from the jury. He who insults the jury deserves no mercy from the jury. His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua has insulted you before Kenyans. I urge you to rise up to the occasion. I urge you to rise up to the occasion. Uphold all the 11 grounds. Uphold all the 11 grounds. Uphold all the 11 grounds. Mr. Speaker, there is evidence that I have not gone through.
That is an insult to
the whole issue of Wamunyoro investments and the land in Embakasi. I have evidence in my bundle of documents that His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua used his office as the Deputy President, called junior officers at the Ministry of Lands, forced them to forge documents to the effect that Wamunyoro Investment had bought the land in Embakasi long even before it had been registered as a company. That land, Mr. Speaker, belongs to a sickly civil servant. It belongs to a father, it belongs to a mother. Mr. Speaker, we must have a Deputy President who is compassionate. I watched the Deputy President yesterday on television displaying impunity and arrogance. He told Kenya, yes, I have said Kenya is a company, Mutadu,
The whole issue of Wamunyoro
He
investments
said
on the land in Embakasi.
that he has said that
I
Kenya
have
is a company.
evidence in my bundle of documents.
Unapologetically,
That His
he
Excellency
said he has
Rigathi
said Kenya is a
Gachagua
company.
used
Is
his
this the kind of a
office
person you would
as
want
the
to be your deputy president?
called
Members of
junior
parliament,
officers at the Ministry
I
of
do not
Lands
want to imagine that
forced
anything
them to
can
forge
happen to the
documents
sitting president.
to the effect
I do not
that
want to
Wamunyoro
imagine.
investment had
But it
bought
is
the land
also
in
a
Embakasi
factual
long even
reality
before it had been
that
registered
something
as a
can
company.
happen to the president
That
who is in
land-
power today.
That land, Mr.
If
Speaker,
anything,
belongs to a secret
and God
civil
forbid,
servant.
happens to
It
the
belongs
president
to
who
a
is in
father,
power
it
today,
belongs to a mother.
is this the man you would want to
Mr.
complete the
Speaker,
term as
we
president?
must have a deputy president who is compassionate.
This man,
I watched the deputy
This
president
man-
yesterday on television displaying
honorable
impunity and
members,
arrogance.
this man called
He
Rigathi
told
Gachagua
Yes,
has already
I have
said that the
Kenya
members
is a
of
company.
parliament in Mount Kenya are either to
He
Gunia,
said,
are either to
he has
Gunia,
said
I
that
don't know
Kenya
what
is a
that
company.
means, or are collaborators,
unapologetically,
and that
he
you will
said
take
he
them
has said
home.
Kenya is a company.
He has already said
this the kind
that
of a person you would
where
want
I
to be
come
the
from,
deputy president?
we deserve no development in
Members of
Ukambani.
parliament,
He
I
has
do
said
not
that the
want to
people of
imagine
Nyanza
that anything can
deserve
happen
no
to the city
development.
president.
He
I
has
do not
said that
want
the
to
people of Western
But
deserve
it is
no
also
development
a
nor
factual
appointments
reality
from the government.
that something can
He has
happen
said
to
that the people
president who
of
is
the
in power
coast
today.
deserve no development
anything,
from the government.
And
He
God
has
forbid,
said that the people of
happens to the
Northeastern
president who is in
deserve
power
no
today.
development from
Is
the
this
government.
the man you would want to
Those are the
complete
people
term
you
as
represent.
president?
Those are the people you represent.
This man,
As you rise up to
This
vote,
man-
please have the best interest of your people at
honorable
heart.
members, this
I
man
urge you,
called Rigathi Gachagua
I urge you,
has
honorable
already
members,
said
as
that
one
the
of your
members
colleagues.
of parliament in Mount Kenya
I urge you,
either to
honorable
Gunia,
members, as one of your colleagues.
are either to Gunia,
When
I
this
don't know what
motion
that
is finally
means,
put to vote,
or our collaborators,
please vote to
and
impeach
that you will
Rigathi
take them
Gachagua.
home. He has already said
Please vote to
that
impeach Rigathi
where I
Gachagua
come
on
from,
all the
we
grounds.
deserve no development in Ukambani. He has said that the
As
people
I conclude,
of Nyanza
Mr. Speaker,
deserve no development. He has said that
As
the
I
people
conclude,
of
Mr.
Western
Speaker,
deserve no development nor appointments from the government.
the,
He has said that the people of the coast
I am confident
deserve no development from the
that
government.
colleague members
He
of
has
parliament,
said that the people
who
of
approve this
Northeastern
motion.
deserve no development from the
and I
government.
want
Those are the people you represent.
to assure you,
Those are the people you represent.
in the event that you vote
As you
for
rise
this
up to
motion,
vote, please
I
have the
will
best
also
interest of your people
persuasively
at heart.
defend it before the Senate.
I urge you.
And I am sure the
I
Senate
urge
of the
you,
Republic
honorable
of
members,
Kenya
as one of your colleagues.
will also uphold, and Kenya will
I
have a
urge
better
you,
deputy
honorable
president
members,
who
as one
views
of
the
your
country
colleagues.
as a whole.
When this motion is finally
With
put
those
to
remarks,
vote,
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move
please vote to
and
impeach
call
Rigathi Gachagua.
our able Deputy Majority Leader, the
Please
Honorable
vote to
Owen
impeach
Baya,
Rigathi Gachagua
to second
on
the
all
motion.
the grounds.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
As I conclude,
Owen
Mr.
Baya,
Speaker,
you have 10 minutes.
as I conclude, Mr. Speaker, I am confident
Owen
that
Baya,
colleague members
you may
of parliament
proceed.
who approve this motion.
Thank you very much, Honorable
And I
Speaker.
want
Honorable Speaker, I
assure
rise to second the
in the event
special
that you
motion
vote
for the
for this
removal
motion,
from
I will
office
also
by
persuasively
impeachment
defend it before
of
the
His
Senate.
Excellency
And I
Rigathi
am sure the Senate
Gachagua,
of the
the
Republic
Deputy
of Kenya
President of the
will
Republic
also
of
uphold,
Kenya.
And Kenya will have a
Honorable
better
Speaker,
deputy
in
president
opening,
who views the
I would like to
country
thank
as a whole.
the Honorable
With those
Mutuse
remarks, Mr. Speaker, I
for
beg
the
to move
courage and valor
and call
in
our
tabling
able
and
Deputy
moving
Majority
this
Leader,
motion.
the Honorable Owen Baya.
Honorable
to
Speaker,
second the
in his
motion.
address
I thank
yesterday,
you, Mr. Speaker.
the Deputy President called Parliament
Owen
and this
Baya, you
National
have 10
Assembly
minutes.
a theater of the absurd, a house of ridicule, a house which processes trash. That's what he said about
Owen
this
Baya,
Parliament.
you may proceed.
Honorable Speaker, just you like the very much, Deputy Honorable President, Speaker. I'm a student of literature.
Honorable Speaker, I
Having been taught by the late
Wasamba
the special
Were
motion
for
and
the
the late
removal
Professor
from
Imbuga.
office by impeachment.
In the definition,
of His
Honorable
Excellency
Speaker,
Rigathi
of the
Gachagua,
theater of
the
absurd,
Deputy President of the
a
Republic.
theater of absurd is without plot,
Honorable Speaker, in opening,
is
I would like to
directionless,
thank the Honorable
is laced with
Mutuse
stupidity,
for the courage and
lacks
valor
thoughts,
in tabling and
lacks
moving
coherence
this
of
motion.
ideas. It is irrational
Honorable Speaker,
and
in
logical.
his address yesterday,
If you have read the book by
the
Samuel
Deputy
Beckett,
President called Parliament and this
the book by
National
Samuel Beckett,
a
you will
theater
know
of the absurd.
that in that book called
A
Waiting
house
for
of
Godot,
ridicule.
that he actually said this parliament is as good as that literature. Honorable Speaker, I sit in this parliament and many of you do that.
Honorable Speaker,
Members, are we a theater of absurd? Members, are we directionless?
having been taught by the late
Members, are we stupid?
and the late Professor.
That's what the Deputy President characterized this parliament. That we are stupid, we are directionless, and we are people who are very useless to this country. Honorable Speaker, a person of the stature of a Deputy President
Lacks thoughts,
who can say such things about this chamber does not deserve to continue to become the Deputy President of the Republic. Honorable Speaker,
by Samuel Beckett,
what is the theater of absurd, Honorable Speaker,
called Waiting for Godot,
is when
that he
the
actually
Deputy
said,
President
this
demands
parliament-
that for the 8 million votes,
I sit in this
for the
parliament
8
and many
million
of you
votes
do
from
that.
Mount Kenya,
Members,
he should
are
be
we a
paid
theater of
2,000
absurd?
shillings, translating
Members,
to
are we
16
direction-
billion shillings, so that he
Members,
can
are
bring
we
peace
stupid?
to this country. Honorable Speaker, that is the theater of absurd. That is the theater of absurd, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker,
Very useless to this
the
country.
Honorable Rigathi Gachagua has committed impeachable offences as provided in Article 151 and 2. He has grossly violated the Constitution and has committed crimes under national and international law, as has been ably demonstrated by the mover of the motion. Honorable Speaker, looking at the evidence provided by the mover of the motion, Honorable Speaker, that is enough to impeach the Deputy President, and he must stand impeached by the end of the day today. Honorable Speaker, Article 131E of the Constitution says the President is a symbol of national unity. Read together with Article 147(1), that the Deputy President is the principal assistant of the President and shall deputize the President in the execution of the functions of the presidency. Honorable Speaker, for this to happen, there must be harmony at the top, in spite of how they were elected to office. His shareholding utterances, and we saw the utterances on the TV here, as demonstrated by the mover, on the shareholding. This ensures that there's no harmony at the presidency. But what the Deputy President wants to do is to balkanize this country. Balkanize the country where, like in George Orwell's Animal Farm, there are other people who are more equal than others. And as a parliament, we must refuse to buy into the theory of the Deputy President, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker,
the Deputy President is the principal assistant.
the Deputy President has taken himself and wants to be a tribal king of the Murima, ready to break the country, sow seeds of disunity for his own political gain. And this chamber, today, by the end of the day, we must have no Deputy President who wants to balkanize this country. Honorable Speaker, the office of the Deputy President is a high office, as established under Article 130. The authority of his office must be exercised within the provisions of Article 10(2), which anchors the principle of national unity as core. The holder of this office must exercise this article at the highest level ever. Honorable Speaker, as Deputy President, he must be beyond reproach. Like Caesar's wife, Honorable Speaker, like Caesar's wife, he must be above any form of suspicion, beyond reproach. But Honorable Speaker, the utterances and the actions of the Deputy President brings his reputation to disrepute, because he has sown sort of disunity and he has taken a trajectory that is likely to bring balkanization of this country. For that, Honorable Speaker, we cannot continue to have a Deputy President who cannot uphold the oath of his office, and therefore Rigathi Gachagua must go. Honorable Speaker, if you look at the story of Pompey, the wife of Julius Caesar, you realize that although she had been accused of sacrilege, but the court acquitted her. But Julius Caesar actually divorced Pompey, not because of what she had been accused of, but because there was suspicion that he could have done something like that. And on that, only on that, Honorable Speaker, as a chamber, as a parliament, we have the authority and right to say, this guy has brought himself to disrepute, he has gone below, and he has portrayed himself as a man who cannot be trusted with the position of a deputy president of the Republic of Kenya. And therefore, Rigathi Gachagua must go. Honorable Speaker, Article 131(2) C and D gives the president and his deputy the responsibility to promote and ensure the unity of the nation and promote respect for the diversity of the people and communities. Honorable Speaker, the Deputy President has presided over the politics of exclusion and has championed the rise and resource allocation to only one region of this country. Has the Deputy President exhibited the values of national unity and diversity? No, Honorable Speaker. He has not. He does not embrace that value, a key value of the Constitution. And therefore, this Deputy President must remain impeached because for him, the vocabulary of diversity and unity does not exist in his vocabulary. On that premise, Honorable Speaker, the Deputy President, Geoffrey Rigathi Gachagua, must go by end of today. Honorable Speaker, Article 4, for the diversity 5 and 6 of the Constitution, read together with the third paragraph of the Constitution of Kenya, reinforces the fact that Kenya is one united, indivisible state. In the same breath, Honorable Speaker, the Constitution establishes the structures of counties as units of sharing resources. However, the Deputy President has established an unlawful and constitutional structure of the country as a structure of sharing national resources, where we have now a new structure of shareholders and non-shareholders. Honorable Speaker, that is sacrilege. We cannot establish another structure of resource allocation apart from the one provided in the Constitution. But now we have a new structure where those who are shareholders in the country get more resources and those that are not shareholders don't get resources. For that new structure that he's trying to establish in this country, the Deputy President, Rigathi Gachagua, must go. Honorable Speaker, in the same breath, Honorable Speaker, there was a time in this country, Honorable Speaker, if you allow me to say this, and I will ask you to add me a few minutes more to say this. However, the Deputy President there was a time in this country when the Deputy Chief Justice, the Honorable Nancy Baraza, was bundled out of office because of impropriety, because of an issue that Kenyans thought was not proper. Nancy Baraza just pinching the nose of someone, and she was bundled out of office, the high office of the Deputy Chief Justice of this country. That's what happened, Honorable Speaker. For that new structure that he's just pinching a nose, and she was bundled out of office. But here we have a Deputy President who has committed sacrilege, trying to balkanize this country. A Deputy President who has called people names. A Deputy President who has called a member of Parliament a prostitute. A Deputy President who has amassed wealth that cannot be accounted for. For that, Honorable Speaker, just like Nancy Baraza was bundled out of office, the Deputy President must also be bundled out of office because of that impropriety. Honorable Speaker, bundled out of office. We saw the mover has evidently demonstrated to us how he took on a judge. That's what happened. But Honorable Speaker, it is not just a judge, it is a female judge. Honorable Speaker, probably he attacked this judge because she was a woman, a lady judge. Where is the place of women judges or women in this country if we have a Deputy President who has no respect for other female or lady leaders in this country. Honorable Speaker, for the abuse on a woman judge, a lady judge, the Deputy President must go.
Out of office. The Deputy President must also.
Honorable Speaker, I know my time is running out, but I want to say this in closing.
Honorable Speaker,
I want to say this. When you ever face an impeachment motion, Honorable Speaker, you'd rather have a rich dead brother
but Honorable Speaker,
who you can shield yourself
it is a
with.
female judge.
We saw what the Deputy President tried to do yesterday. But I want to tell him that Kenyans are clever and they read through what he wanted to do yesterday. And they will not buy it. It does not sell. It won't be bought. We know who he is. We know
who has no respect for other female or
Give him 1 minute. Finish up. Finish up.
Honorable Speaker, for the abuse on a woman judge, a lady
yes,
judge,
Honorable Speaker, we know
go.
what he tried to do yesterday, but we can't buy it, Honorable Speaker, and therefore, Rigathi Gachagua must stand impeached at the end of the day. Honorable Speaker, we are in this boat together. We have one character in this boat called Kenya who is trying to rock it from within. He's trying to break this country. In that event, Honorable Speaker, we have a duty, if we're in that boat, to remove this one person from this boat and toss him into the high seas so that everybody is safe. And that is the duty that we must do today. And I want to convince even those that still have doubts of whether this guy should continue. I want to convince them we are safer as Kenya without Rigathi Gachagua as Deputy President of this country. We are safer as a country. The northeastern region is safer. The coast is safer. The Nyanza is safer. And all parts of Kenya are safer. Honorable Speaker, and Kenya is safer without Rigathi Gachagua as Deputy President.
We have one
Mr. Speaker, we do not want Rigathi Gachagua to resign. We want this house, which he has called the House Theatre of Absurd, Honorable Speaker, to impeach him so that he knows that he needs to respect institutions also. Lack of respect of institutions, Honorable Speaker, is sacrilegious for the person of the stature of a Deputy President. For that, Honorable Speaker, for not respecting this Parliament and the Senate must impeach one Geoffrey Rigathi Gachagua tonight, and we send him home so that he knows his place in this country. For those many remarks, I second, Honorable Speaker, and ask other members to support this question. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
As Deputy President.
Order, honorable members on their feet, take your seats.
We do not want Rigathi Gachagua to resign.
Members on their feet, take your seats.
House, which he has called the House Theatre of Absurd.
Order, members on their feet. Ruth Odinga,
so
take
that
your
he
seat.
knows that he needs to respect institutions.
Order,
also.
honorable members,
Lack of
take your
respect
seats.
of institutions, Honorable Speaker, is sacrilegious
Honorable
for the
members
person
are
of
now
the stature
propose
of a
the
Deputy
question,
President.
and you'll
For
note
that,
that on the
Honorable
order
Speaker,
paper,
for not respecting
there is
this
a long
Parliament,
version
and the
of the
Senate
motion
must impeach
and
one
the abridged
Geoffrey
version
Rigathi
of the motion.
Gachagua tonight,
Those of
and
you
we
want
send
to
him
look for
home so that he
details
knows his place in this
of the
country.
longer
For those
version,
many
it is
remarks,
there.
I second, Honorable Speaker,
I now
and
propose
ask
the
other
question,
members
which is that
to support
pursuant
this question.
the
I thank
provisions
you,
of
Honorable
Article 145 and 151B and 2 of the Constitution and Standing Order 64 and 65, this House resolves to remove from office by impeachment His Excellency Honorable Rigathi Gachagua, EGH, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, on the following grounds. 1. Gross violation of Articles 10(2)(a), B, and C, 27(4), 73(1)(a), 2 and B, 75(1)(c), 129(2) of the Constitution and Articles 147(1) as read together with Article 131(2)(c) and D of the Constitution. 2. Gross violation of Articles 174(1) and 152(1) of the Constitution by undermining the President and the Cabinet and the effective discharge of the national government's executive mandate. 3. Gross violation of Article 6(2), 10(2)(a), 174, 1861, 189(1) and the fourth schedule to the Constitution by undermining devolution. 4. Gross violation of Article 161 of the Constitution on the institutional and decisional independence of judges. 5. Gross violation of Article 3(1) and 148(5)(a) of the Constitution on the fidelity to the oath of office and allegiance. 6. Serious reasons to believe that His Excellency the Deputy President has committed crimes under sections 13(1)(a) and 62 of the National Cohesion and Integration Act. 7. Serious reasons to believe that His Excellency the Deputy President has committed gross economic crimes under sections 45(1), 46, 47(a)(3), and 48(1) of the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act, and sections 2, 3, 4, and 7 of the Proceeds of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Act. 8. Serious reasons to believe that His Excellency the Deputy President has committed crimes by continuously misleading members of the public through false, malicious, divisive, and insightful remarks that are contrary to the provisions of Section 132 of the Penal Code and Section 29 of the Leadership and Integrity Act. 9. Gross misconduct that is incompatible with the high calling and dignified status of the office of the Deputy President, a member of the Cabinet and the National Security Council. His Excellency the Deputy President has publicly attacked and undermined the work of the National Intelligence Service and its officers. 10. Gross misconduct by openly and publicly insubordinating the President, who is the head of state and government. And 11. Gross misconduct by persistently bullying state and public officers. Honorable members, the motion is supported and the list is attached by 291 members of this House. And insightful remarks that are contrary to the provisions of Section 132 of the Penal Code and Section 29 of the Leadership and Integrity Act. 9. Gross misconduct that is members, before I open the debate, I received a letter from one Honorable Wandeto purporting to withdraw his signature. I want to invite the Honorable Member to read the standing orders that are very clear. Once you append your signature to a special motion, once you append your signature on a special motion, you have crossed the Rubicon, and you cannot withdraw that signature. Honorable Otienda Molo. The motion is supported, and the list is attached by 200.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker,
members of this House.
Mr. Speaker, shall I use the dispatch with your permission? Thank you.
Members, before I open the debate, I received a letter from one Honorable Wandeto purporting to withdraw his signature. I want to invite the Honorable Member to read the standing orders that are very clear.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this special motion is unprecedented but contemplated by the Constitution, and I support it. Let it be a lesson, Mr. Speaker,
you have crossed the
that
Rubicon.
be you ever so high, the Constitution is still above you.
Withdraw that signature.
Mr. Speaker, some have told me and have told us that this is not our war. But, Mr. Speaker, they do not know that in circumstances of combat, a bystander is at greater risk than a combatant. You must choose your sides. And I've chosen, Mr. Speaker, after listening to the display of jingoism by the Deputy President, after listening to the self-entitlement for 2.5 hours, after listening to the disdain of governance institutions, this parliament and the courts, after listening to the DP threatening that parliament and the courts should know that it's not easy to remove a deputy president who had 7.2 million votes. Mr. Speaker, after treating Kenyans as fools by trying to mislead on the intent and purpose of his utterances on the idea of government being a company, it was easy for me to make a decision to cast my lot with impeachment of the deputy president.
The Constitution is still above you.
Mr. Speaker, there can be much to say on the reasons.
And have told us that
it
this is not our war.
Easy, for example, Mr. Speaker, to talk about the confessions of the deputy president regarding 600 million that his son under 30 years was able to acquire. And he says, without tabling any evidence, that it was acquired from a bank. But he admits, Mr. Speaker, more importantly, two things. One, that the property in issue was government property, irregularly acquired without the usual procurement processes.
And the courts.
He also admits, Mr. Speaker, that the son was able to be given, a moratorium of 1 year not to pay anything while enjoying the proceeds. And the DP thinks there is nothing wrong with that. It is for good reason that the anti-corruption laws in this country do not limit themselves to the individual. They go to the spouse and the children. It is for such reasons. Mr. Speaker, it is also interesting that the DP admits to abuse of office. How does he do that? The DP admits to abuse of office on the issue of KEMSA. It is important, and this bears repetition, that the evidence tabled by the Honorable Mutuse includes an affidavit by Dr. Mulwa. That affidavit at paragraph 5 is very instructive, and it says that the DP's phone calls was aimed at interfering and covering procurement irregularities. And that is a direct affidavit. But more importantly, if you look at page 69, you will see the SMSs. And that SMS, the son of the deputy president, Dr. Ikinu Rigathi, has the courage to say that there is a document for His Excellency we are trying to collect, not for himself, not for any other company, for His Excellency.
And the children, it is for such reason.
And the fact, Mr. Speaker, that the DP admits to these processes and sees nothing wrong with it is a very serious matter of integrity. But Mr. Speaker, I'll not speak to all those two. I'll speak to a more fundamental fact. The blatant justification of discrimination and insightful utterances against Kenyans. That is where I want to focus, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in this, the DP and have gone through the documents. There are various clips where the DP repeats this, that Kenya is a company and those who did not vote for Kenya Kwanza are not entitled to enjoy the proceeds from that company. What worries me, Mr. Speaker, is that with a straight face, the DP could appear on live television and justify this utterances. How does he justify it? He says that he is entitled to do that because there are some partisan political agreements or promises that were made. What does that mean? The DP elevates promises at a political party level above the National Cohesion and Integration Act, Section 13. He elevates those promises at a political party level above the Constitution of Kenya. There are 15 different articles that speaks against this. The fact that the DP can think that he can justify such utterances and elevate these agreements above the law and the Constitution is the clearest evidence that he must go because he has breached the Constitution. It is important to note that Article 145, 1A and C do not say that if you are respecting a political promise, then you can breach the Constitution. If that was to be the case, Article 24 would include that as a limitation. It does not include. If you want one reason, members, to impeach the deputy president is because he has admitted to breaching the constitution on account of a political promise.
What does that mean?
Mr. Speaker, Article 145(1)(b) is another interesting one. And it speaks to reasonable, serious reasons to believe that the DP has breached the Constitution. You do not need the hard evidence. Members, remember, for conviction, that is for courts. We are not a court of law. Ours is to look at the evidence and see if there's a serious and reasons to believe. Those serious reasons speak to integrity. They speak to impropriety. And if you look at them and then find that there's some impropriety, then ground 7 will have been proved. Ground 7 talks of the issue of acquired property coming to 5.2 billion. What struck me, Mr. Speaker, is that the deputy president took 1.5 hours to explain why he's not corrupt. Of the 2.5 hours, 90 minutes was to explain why he is not corrupt. The very fact that you take 90 minutes to explain you are not corrupt is prima facie evidence of corruption.
Interesting one. And it speaks to reasonable, serious reasons to believe that the DP has breached the Constitution. You do not need the hard evidence.
Mr. Speaker,
members, remember,
for one who is not corrupt, you can explain it in a sentence, period. To take 90 minutes is in itself prima facie evidence that there's corruption.
A serious and reasons to believe.
Mr. Speaker, on the KEMSA issue, other than their affidavit and their interference, the affidavit, the DP then admits interference. Whoever advised the DP to do that live interview could not have had his interests at heart, but has made our work much easier. Because now there are self-incriminations, confessions, and admissions that we can work with. Mr. Speaker, it is clear from yesterday's presentation that the deputy president can no longer deputize the president. The role of any deputy under the constitution is to deputize. Mr. Speaker, I claim for just 2 more minutes. So that, Mr. Speaker, even the fact, Mr. Speaker,
for one
it is not a ground of the impeachment by Honorable Mwangi Mutuse.
To take 90 minutes,
but it has become a clear ground from yesterday's interview that the DP is incapable of deputizing the president.
Mr. Speaker,
and if we needed an independent ground, that is very clear. It is also clear that the DP can no longer be part of a cabinet. It is a basic rule.
Whoever advised the DP to do that live interview,
if you cannot work with your boss, if you cannot insubordinate your boss, if one person is to go, is the subordinate, not the boss.
Mr.
Speaker,
it is clear from yesterday's presentation that the deputy president can no longer deputize the president.
Mr. Speaker, I want to just close by addressing one issue, and it bears address. Some Kenyans,
for just 2 more minutes.
Hello, Mr. Speaker, it is important to address this issue. Some Kenyans want us to divert attention from the impeachment that is before us. There's only one impeachment motion before us, and it's in respect of the deputy president. Now, some people have said, Kufa Makanga, Kufa Dereva. Now, let me explain to you. First of all, when you say Kufa Dereva, Kufa Makanga, you must remember that in that bus there are passengers. And those passengers can die if you are reckless. In this case, those passengers are Kenyans. We as Parliament must navigate that issue so carefully that the passengers called Kenyans remain safe. Mr. Speaker, that is extremely important. Why? We are in a very unique position where we have a president and a deputy president, but we do not have an IBC. If anything happens right now, as we are going to, if we impeach the deputy president as we want to, as we need to, the position can be filled even without an IBC.
It is important.
But if there is no president and there is no deputy president, only the speaker can act for 60 days. Within those 60 days, there must be an election. We cannot currently have an election because we have no IBC. To have IBC commissioners, you need a president to nominate the board that will select them. Once the board is nominated and they propose a name, then the name must be forwarded again to us, and it's only the president who can nominate them. In other words, if you say Kufa Dereva, Kufa Makanga, you want absolute turmoil for all the Kenyans to die in that accident. That would be a very reckless act. Mr. Speaker, I am convinced, having looked at the deputy president, having listened to him, that the deputy president is not remorseful.
We are in a very unique position.
He is not sorry for any utterances. He is not prepared to change. He is a man who must be saved from himself by impeachment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I support.
If we impeach the deputy president as we want to, as we need to, the position can be filled even without an IBC. But if there is no president, there is no deputy president, only the speaker can act for 60 days. Within those 60 days, there must be an election. We cannot currently have an election because we have no IBC. To have IBC commissioners, you need a president to nominate the board that will select them.
Order, honorable members, order. Order, Bensouda.
Then the name will be forwarded again to us.
Freeze where you are.
Only the president who can nominate them. In other words,
order, honorable members.
You want
I know the limits of exuberance are high.
To die in that accident. That would be a very reckless act. Mr. Speaker, I am convinced, having looked at the deputy president, having listened to him, that the deputy president is not remorseful. He is not sorry for any utterances. He is not prepared to change. He is a man who must be saved from himself by impeachment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Dr. Bukose will not ask to put the question. So let's listen to each other. Of course, the kind and band of debate cannot be ruled out in acknowledging good issues and disagreeing, but let's have some decorum. Those of you who speak, you have 5 minutes. If you can finish earlier, the better, so that many more can speak. Go on, Murugara. And members, when you are given permission to speak, if you wish to come to the dispatch box, do so. If you want to speak from where you are, do so.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, before I even state my position as regards this motion, it is important for me to express what the views of Kenyans are regarding this motion, and especially with a hindsight of the public participation that we did, and also from the public opinion which was communicated to Kenyans through an agency that conducts opinion polls. It is vitally important to remind Kenyans that through the public participation that we did on a Friday and Saturday, it was overwhelming that Kenyans were in approval of the motion,
if you wish to come
and
to the dispatch box,
therefore we must respect their position. We must also remind Kenyans that an agency by the name TIFA has come up with an opinion polling, which again has indicated that Kenyans are in favor for me of the motion. Therefore, even as we debate today regarding this motion, even as we agonize over this motion, even as we consult the Honorable Wengi Mutuse, as we have done from time to time, as regards this motion, it is quite clear that Kenyans are in favor of the motion carrying the day. I therefore respect the position of Kenyans. I respect the position of my constituents of Tharaka, and I do confirm that I rise to support the motion. That today, the motion that has been brought to this House to have His Excellency the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, the Honorable Rigathi Gachagua, impeached. We must also carries the day by a vote to be taken by the House.
Has come up with
I must commend the Honorable Mwengi Mutuse, who is actually my vice chairperson in Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, for work excellently done.
Even as we debate
and repeat
today,
the position he has made,
as we agonize
that we are not a court of law trying a suspect. We are a House of Parliament which is required to just consider whether the grounds advanced are actually substantiated. Do we have reasons to believe that the grounds advanced are substantiated? Having listened to the mover, having looked at the documentation, and I confess we have burnt midnight oil looking at this particular motion and the supporting documentation. These grounds are substantiated. Allow me briefly to just mention but a few. Ground number one, which is on dangerous divisions in the country, is propagated by the Deputy President. The Deputy President last night admitted and tried to qualify the admission that he had likened Kenya to a company. There is total difference between likening the government to a company and stating categorically that the government is actually a company. The Deputy President, in the clips we have watched, was candid in a statement to Kenyans that the government is actually a company and that each one of us has or does not have shares in that company. The net effect of this is, if you do not have shares, then you do not belong to Kenya. If you have shares, then you are more Kenyan than any other person who has lesser shares than you. This is the dangerous division which this House must frown against, and it must hold squarely against the Deputy President.
The Deputy President last night,
the second admission he made, which is a very strong ground of this motion, is breach of collective responsibility. It has been clearly stated that the cabinet includes the Deputy President. The President is the principal, the Deputy President is the principal assistant of the President. Having breached this doctrine of collective responsibility, and he clearly said he did so because he thought, in his view, in his opinion, it was unconstitutional to have decided the way they decided, clearly shows that the Deputy President is not able to work with the government in which he is mandated to work with. To have actually failed to assist the President so that you speak contrary to what the President says is itself insubordination, as we have actually been told. The net effect is that even if the Deputy President was actually to survive this impeachment motion, our question is, where would he work? He cannot work with the President because he made another admission that this motion actually has the nod of the President. We have not had any PG, we have had no meetings whatsoever regarding this motion, but he is convinced that the President has a hand in this motion. If that is the case and he survives, who will he work with? Who will be his boss? Number two, he says whatever they do in the cabinet tinkers on the unconstitutionality. If that is what his position is, that the cabinet as it sits today would actually make decisions, which decisions they would have to execute at one time or the other, which are unconstitutional, which cabinet will he work with? Therefore, it goes without gainsaying that the personality of the Deputy President, His Excellency regarding Gachagua, is untenable as far as the presidency is concerned and as far as the cabinet is concerned.
That this motion
1 minute more.
has the nod of
There has been an argument regarding the companies, and Honorable Mutuse has read out the companies, which nobody seems to know exactly why these companies were formed, exactly what was the ulterior motive of forming these companies. But what I wish to point out regarding the companies, and what Kenyans should know, is that some of the properties under which the Deputy President aid, stating that these were properties of his late brother, are actually today his properties. Most important is
one time or the other, which are unconstitutional, which cabinet will he work with. Therefore, it
a property known as Kuruwitu Home Resort.
Deputy President.
This property was actually sold to another company known as Kuruwitu Properties Limited for Kenya shillings 250,000. A search of these companies indicate that Kuruwitu Properties Limited is owned by Vipigo Beach Resort Limited and John Y. Mavenge. We therefore have to ask ourselves, who is Vipigo Beach Resort Limited? And CR12 indicates that this company is actually owned in shares by Keith Ekino Rigathi, Kevin Gachagua Rigathi, the estate of the deceased James Nderitu Gachagua. As we were told, these two persons named, Keith and Kevin, are not executors of the estate of the late Nderitu Gachagua. So if they actually own this company, which owns one of the properties of the deceased, purchased at Kenya shillings 250 million, then it goes without gainsaying that in fact, the Deputy President has an explanation to give regarding this. Finally, we've been told about the press statement he made in Mombasa, and this is the evidence of insubordination. The country was on fire. The country was burning. The president actually finished or completed giving what measures he would take to restore the country. The Deputy President went to Mombasa, where he gave a statement which in itself was inciting to Kenyans, casting aspersions on the government, casting aspersions on our agencies, and at the end of the day, we have also seen him casting aspersions on the judiciary, which is supposed to be an independent institution. What we are required to do as members of parliament is to prove only one ground. The rest of them may fall or may succeed. But I can assure you, out of the 11 grounds, there is cogent evidence that the Deputy President has committed acts inconsistent with his office, acts which in themselves warrant this House to impeach him today as we go to the vote. As I conclude, I urge the House, let us look at the bigger picture, which is the bigger picture of Kenya as a country. What we are doing is not to try and appease one person. We are trying to do this so that the country is safe. And we have always asked the question, the second in command who does not work with the first in command and his team, of what use would that person be to the country? With those very many remarks, I do beg to support this motion. Thank you.
Which is supposed to be an independent
Mishimbogo.
institution. What we are required to do as members of parliament is to prove only one ground. The rest of them may fall or may succeed.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika. Mheshimiwa Spika, nasimama hapa kuunga mkono hoja hii ya kumng'atua mamlakani naibu wa rais Bwana Rigathi Gachagua. Na naunga mkono kwa sababu katiba yetu kifungu 159 imetupatia sababu mwafaka za kuweza kumng'atua naibu wa rais. Na sababu ya kwanza imezungumzia kukeuka katiba. Na nikiangalia Mheshimiwa Rigathi Gachagua amekeuka katiba katiba, haswa nikiangalia kipengele cha 10 ambacho kinazungumzia maadili ya kitaifa. Maadili ya kitaifa ikiwemo umoja, ikiwemo demokrasia, ikiwemo usawa. Mara nyingi sana amezungumzia mambo ya kwamba nchi yetu ni kama kampuni na ni ya washikadau, na amesema kwamba washikadau hawa ni wale ambao tu wamepiga kura katika serikali ya Kenya Kwanza. Hivyo basi kukiuka maadili katika kifungu cha 10, kwa sababu tunajua Wakenya wote wanalipa ushuru na Wakenya wote wana haki sawia, wale waliopiga kura kwa serikali na wale ambao pia walikuwa katika upande ule mwingine, kwa sababu ni demokrasia. Unaweza kuwa upande wa serikali na unaweza kuwa upande wa upinzani. Vile vile pia tunaona katika kifungu 147 kinasema ya kwamba yeye atakuwa ni msaidizi mkuu wa rais katika serikali, na msaidizi mkuu pia atakuwa ni naibu katika zile kazi ambazo rais anazifanya. Lakini je, vitendo vyake vimeonyesha mambo hayo? Vitendo vimeonyesha ya kwamba yeye si msaidizi. Kuna wakati ule wa Gen Z, wakati rais ametoa hotuba hapa Nairobi ya kutoa mwelekeo wa kitaifa na jambo lile, yeye alikuwa Mombasa akitoa hotuba ambayo ilikuwa inazungumza tofauti na ile hotuba ya rais, na hapo pia katia fitina katika taasisi zetu za kiserikali na kumlaumu Bwana Nurdin Haji. Kwa hivyo imeonyesha ya kwamba yeye ni kama anachukua nafasi ile ya rais, hachukui ile nafasi ya kwamba yeye ni msaidizi. Vile vile pia tumeona ya kwamba naibu wa rais amekiuka katiba na kuwa amezungumzia utovu wa nidhamu kwa hali ya juu. Ile Kiingereza tunasema gross misconduct. Kwa mfano, aliita mmoja wetu Mheshimiwa Jematia na kumuita malaya. Unapoita mwanamke yoyote malaya, umeita wamama wote wa Kenya malaya. Sisi si malaya, sisi ni kina mama na sisi ni viongozi. Hatuwezi tukakubali naibu wa rais kutuita malaya. Akarudi akasema hawa wamama wa Mount Kenya ambao wako pamoja na mimi, hawa ni wamama wote, ni wamama wa rais, hawa ni wamama wake. Alikuwa anamaanisha nini? Mheshimiwa Rigathi Gachagua, huna heshima kwa kina mama wa taifa hili la Kenya. Vile vile katika huo utovu wa nidhamu tunaona sehemu ya Nyandarua alinunua shamba ambalo kina mama walikuwa wamelima mahindi, wamelima viazi, wamelima zile mushiri. Alimweka pale MCA na wakavuruga hiyo chakula yote. Angekuwa yeye ana hekima kama kiongozi, angeacha vikue, watu wavune, alafu achukue hilo shamba. Lakini ni kwamba hana nidhamu na wala hana kufikiria Wakenya kama naibu wa rais, na wala hana ubinadamu. Vile vile pia sababu nyingine inakuwa ya kwamba ukikosa ufanisi, Kiingereza incompetence. Na mimi nataka niseme alikosa ufanisi kwa sababu alisema anapigana na pombe haramu na anapigana na madawa ya kulevya. Akaja kule Pwani, kazi aliyofanya kubwa ni kutukana viongozi, kusema anajua wanaouza miadarati, atawataja, atawashika. Aliwashika. Miadarati iko ama hakuna? Na hii pombe haramu iko Mlima peke yake ama pia iko kule magharibi, iko kule sehemu ya Nyanza na iko hata hapa Nairobi? Tumuulize yale mamilioni ambayo ameyatumia kwa hiyo kazi yametupatia natija gani? Yamefanya faida gani? Isipokuwa kunyakua ardhi, akiandika kwa jina la mke wake ati atatengeza sehemu za kuweza kunasua vijana kwa jambo hilo. Jambo jingine ni kashfa ya KEMSA. Imezungumziwa vizuri sana vile alivyowezesha watoto wake na makampuni yake na kuiba pesa zile katika kashfa hiyo. Hatuwezi kuwa na naibu wa rais ambaye juzi na jana alikuwa milioni 800, yani kama mali yake. Hivi karibuni ati ni bilioni 5.2. Kwa muda mchache tu pesa hizo umezipata wapi? Pia umedhulumu bibi wawili wa marehemu ndugu yako aliyekuwa gavana wa Nyeri. Utakuwaje upewe flati 10 na wao wapewe 5 na ni wawili na kuna na watoto? Jamani, ni sheria gani? Tunao sheria ile ya Kiingereza. Iko Mlima peke yake ama pia iko kule magharibi, iko kule sehemu ya Nyanza na iko
Give her 1 minute.
Tunajua hiyo sheria imezungumzia wakati mume amekufa, yani ni mabibi na watoto ndio wanaurithi. Sasa wewe itakuwaje uchukue huo urithi wote, mpaka hoteli umechukua, ati uliandikiwa, ati ndugu yako alikupa? Jamani, jamani, wewe kama makamu wa rais muogope Mwenyezi Mungu na ujue ya kwamba hatuko hapa sisi katika ukabila. Tukiangalia act ile ya National Cohesion Integration Act inazungumzia yoyote atakayetumia maneno ya matusi, maneno ya kutishia ili kuweza kuleta bughudha katika makabila, yeye anatakikana ashtakiwe na amefanya makosa. Rwanda juzi na jana matamshi ya kikabila yaliwatia katika vita vikali vya kikabila, na wewe leo unataka kuleta vita katika taifa la Kenya. Tuliona molo clashes na hata wewe unasemekana ulikuwa kwa hiyo maneno. Tuliona
Time up. Time up, Mishi. Give Faith Gitau.
Tunajua hiyo sheria imezungumzia wakati mume amekufa, yani ni mabibi na watoto.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for according me this opportunity. And from the onset, I support this special motion. First, our supreme law of the land expects the presidency, which includes the president and the deputy, to be a symbol of national unity. In that case, the holders of that office are expected to portray a national image as opposed to an ethnic outlook. Honorable Speaker, our Deputy President has been at the forefront in advancing a selfish ethnic agenda. For him, it is about his community and nothing more. After an election, Mr. Speaker, the government has to serve both those who voted for it and those who did not. It was wrong for the Deputy President to advocate for shareholding in order to discriminate against the rest of the communities, which may create ethnic animosity against Mount Kenya region. As a county member of parliament, I think I have traversed this nation more than the Deputy President. Secondly, Honorable Speaker, the Deputy President, as the second in command, should act as a father figure to members of parliament and the community at large. Far from it, the Deputy President, during his tenure, has been divisive and very egocentric. For him, it is about me, myself, and I. It is unfortunate that he has lowered the status and respect expected of such high office. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, when we went to the people urging them to elect this government, we gave them an undertaking that women must be respected. It is therefore, it disturbs me so greatly when the Deputy President is at the forefront demeaning women in leadership, particularly those he perceives his enemies. He has no respect for women whatsoever. He has made a scathing public attacks on a woman High Court judge. And in addition, he has been attacking women, and especially members of parliament, me and others included in this house. And therefore, he can never, and he has no respect for women, and he can never work with women. And for those few remarks, I support. when we went to the people urging them to elect this government, we gave them an undertaking.
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for this opportunity.
Women must
Honorable
be respected.
I want to say the following.
It disturbs me so greatly.
Impeachment of a deputy president
the deputy president
is a matter of national interest,
demeaning women in leadership.
And it's on the basis of that, Honorable Speaker,
he perceives
that people have to be very careful with what they do with this impeachment.
He has no respect for
Honorable Speaker, I want to remind the House that we are only one of the many parts of the process. This National Assembly will be making their decision.
And in addition,
from there we'll go to the Senate.
He has been attacking women,
and there is also the courts, if need be. And this is on the basis of that, Honorable Speaker, that we must isolate personal issues from issues which make sense to Kenyans. So that, Honorable Speaker, we don't, as a House, go for what I'll call mob justice mentality, and at the end of the day, the other stages, we lose it. Honorable Speaker, in the past, this House has been thrown under the bus because of this kind of mentality, where we go, make decisions, and out there, when they go to the courts, a number of our acts of parliament have been declared unconstitutional, basically because as members, we come here and we start shouting and assuming that other people there are not watching. Honorable Speaker, what am I saying? I've listened to the grounds of this motion, this impeachment motion, and I've listened to my friend, Honorable Mutuse, making the presentation and trying to justify some of these grounds, Honorable Speaker. I want to pick a few of them and ask myself whether they meet the expectations in terms of saying that the DP should be impeached on these grounds. The first one, Honorable Speaker, is the issue of demolition. In this country, Honorable Speaker, when you go to our constitution, it clearly says that Kenyans have a right. They have their own rights. And if the government has made a decision to carry out demolitions, looking at the hierarchy in terms of governance, the topmost person in terms of hierarchy is the president, is not the deputy president. So in a situation where a decision is made, and the deputy president says he doesn't support it, the question is, should you be harassing the deputy president or the president? Because the person who took the oath as the head of the executive is the president or the deputy president. So on the basis of those demolitions, Honorable Speaker, it is going to be very unfair to start saying it is the deputy president who is insubordinating the president, because at the end of the day, whose decision did carry the day? That's the question. The second issue, Honorable Speaker, is the issue of shareholding. Honorable members, let's be very honest with ourselves. We are all politicians. We have been voted in. We represent constituencies. How many of you can say that you are not practicing what is being explained in this motion? How many? Let's be very honest with ourselves. Let's be very honest with ourselves that most of you, majority of you, are doing exactly what is being said in this motion. It's only that don't say it publicly. That's the truth of the matter, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker.
Yes, Makari, there's a point of order.
Yeah, I have no problem, Honorable Speaker. I hope I'll be saving my time.
Mr. Speaker, on a point of order, my name is Steve Mogaka from West Mogrango. Is the member on the floor in order to speak about what I practice? What does he know about what I practice? Can he restrict himself to what he does and not start throwing aspersions on members of parliament as if he is in their minds and he is in their practices? He's not. Is he not out of order?
Yes, Makali.
We are all politicians. Honorable Speaker, I really don't see any point of order there. I ignore and proceed. Honorable Speaker, the issue of the judicial officer who is being accused as one of the grounds for this. How many? Honorable Speaker.
Order, Makali.
Honorable Speaker.
There's another point of order here.
That most of you, majority of you,
give Farah the mic.
Mr. Speaker, is the Honorable Makali, somebody I have a lot of respect for. In order to compare a member of parliament who represents a constituency and the functions of that member and somebody who is the deputy president of the Republic of Kenya who represents the four corners of this country, and say that because the members of parliament go and develop, my presumption is that he thinks the CDF funds for one constituency cannot be taken to another constituency. But that's a different thing when it comes to national resources and the deputy president of the Republic of Kenya.
And not start throwing passions.
You know, Honorable Speaker, I have this honor just to drive me to not to say what I wanted to say, Honorable Speaker. I can see a very deliberate move to curtail me from saying what I want to say. Honorable Speaker, you know the thing is, Honorable Speaker, and Honorable Speaker, you need to protect me on a serious. You have been protecting everybody who has spoken. Unless also, Honorable Speaker, you're on the same side of those who are supporting. Because on a serious, Honorable Speaker, I don't think it's fair. You have been protecting everybody else. You can't protect. Honorable Speaker.
Order. Honorable Makali Mulu. Take your seat. Order, Honorable Makali Mulu. You've been sitting here since we started. Order, Makali.
In order
not a single previous
a member of parliament who represents a constituency and the functions of that member and somebody who is the deputy president of the Republic of Kenya
a single person
the four corners of this country.
In fact, that because
the members of parliament go and develop,
Nimrod wants to inform you, do you want this information? If you don't want it, you go on. But for you, Order Makali Mulu,
national resources,
you know,
and the
when you lose,
of the Republic of Kenya.
You lose your cool, you also lose the argument.
You know, Honorable Speaker, I have this honor just to drive
the Speaker has no dog in this fight.
I can see a very deliberate
just
move
say what you want to say,
me from saying what I want to say.
And we give space to somebody else. And any member who wants to stand on a point of order is protecting everybody who has spoken.
Unless also, Honorable Speaker, you're on the same side of those who are supporting. Because honestly, as Honorable Speaker, I don't think it's fair. You know, Honorable Speaker, with all due respect, people have been making their contribution here since morning. Nobody has been shouting point of order. So, and it's my democratic position to oppose the motion. Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I've been elected by the people of Kitui Central to come to this house 3 times. And nobody can assume that I cannot make my contribution. Honorable Speaker, I've been saying, on the matter of judicial officer.
Wind up.
The judicial officer has been accused of corruption-related matters, Honorable Speaker. And there is a court case, or as we are speaking. Are we running away from accountability as a country? When do we allow the courts to do their work up to the conclusion that as a house we want to make this as a ground for impeachment, Honorable Speaker? This is what we are saying. There is separation of power, Honorable Speaker, and we should respect that. The other thing, Honorable Speaker, the India of officers been called by the DP. Just called. How many of us here since morning have been called by the President? How many of us here since morning have been called by the Deputy President? Pleading with us to either support or oppose. Can you be impeached on that note? On a serious note, we need to be serious as a house. And that's why I'm saying, Honorable Speaker, from where we are seated as a house, you go for mob justice mentality, you lose it at the top there, you are trying to reduce the credibility of this house to the lowest level. I know we are already low. I wish we should not reduce it further than where we are, Honorable Speaker. Let's go for strong grounds for opposition of this motion. Is it a situation where Aviv has been sent to court to catch another thief? This is a situation. Honorable Speaker, this country has much more serious issues than what we are discussing.
Your time is up. Order. I will now order. Take your seats. Order.
Are we running away from accountability as a country? When do we allow the courts to do their work?
Robert Mbai. Boy. Order, Robert Mbai. Give him 1 minute to finish.
Yeah, Honorable Speaker. So I was saying, Honorable Speaker, Kenyans have said that Kitui Central in particular has said, Kufa Makanga, Kufa Ndereva, Kufa Mechanic, because Kenyans are more serious issues. And when they die, we want a new renewal of this country, Honorable Speaker. This idea of mob justice, we are not going to allow in this country. Kenyans have more serious things. I oppose, Honorable Speaker.
Mele Odhiambo to speak to the public participation report.
Reduce the credibility of this house to the lowest.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I was just wondering if after speaking to the public participation, that I could also just make my contribution.
You have 15 minutes within which you have to speak to all those.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'll try. Mr. Speaker, earlier on in the morning, I had tabled before the House.
I will now order, take your seats. Order.
I am, is it vertically challenged?
Robert Mbai, you are loud enough. Go on. Order, Robert Mbai.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I was indicating that earlier in the morning I had presented a report of a public participation on the proposed removal from office by impeachment of His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua, EGH, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. Honorable Speaker, this is following the notice of a special motion by Honorable Mwengi Mutuse and in line with Article 1182 of the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, consequently, the House Business Committee approved a public participation program across all 290 constituencies, and I present on behalf of the House Business Committee. Mr. Speaker, I'll speak to the issue of the legal framework of public participation. And Mr. Speaker, Article 10.2 of the Constitution provides for the participation of the people as one of the national values and principles of governance. Mr. Speaker, again, Article 118 of the Constitution requires Parliament to ensure public access and participation of the people in its affairs. I will not go to the details, and you can read it for ourselves because of time. Mr. Speaker, I wish to note on my own behalf that in quasi-judicial proceedings like this, public participation is not really necessary, even though the courts are pronounced that they are. In my view, they are not actually necessary in a quasi-judicial processes like this, because, Mr. Speaker, it's almost like saying that the judiciary needs public participation in making their decision. Having said that, Mr. Speaker, I also want to speak to the issue of timelines. And, Mr. Speaker, Parliament has spoken very clearly on the issue of timelines, understanding Order 64.2. And in summary, Mr. Speaker, I would want to say, if you read the standing order, that there are very strict timelines for a process or a motion like this. And, Mr. Speaker, in setting the period, the National Assembly was guided by the need to preserve the overarching constitutional principle of acting without unreasonable delay. The special motion for removal from office by impeachment of the Deputy President was therefore processed in accordance with the timeline sets out under Standing Order 64. Mr. Speaker, in buttressing the necessity for expedited consideration of special motions, previous speakers of the National Assembly of Kenya expressed themselves on the question of timelines for considering special motions by the House when the special motions were filed proposing the removal by impeachment of the then Cabinet Secretaries, Honorable Anne Waiguru, Honorable James Macharia, Honorable Kaimenyi, and more recently, Honorable Mithika Linturi. In all the foregoing instances, the Speaker emphasized the need to dispose of a special motion as soon as is practicable to remove the anxiety of hangman's noose from the neck of a state officer proposed for impeachment. Mr. Speaker, you have seen the level of anxiety that the Deputy President has undergone. And indeed, when he was actually giving the press statement yesterday, he was almost in tears. And that is why the House hastens the process so that the emotional turmoil is lessened, having gone through this process, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Clerk of the National Assembly published advertisements on the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th of October, and invited written submissions via hand delivery, post, or email until the 5th of October 2024. Mr. Speaker, all these were also advertised on the 4th of October and extended to the 5th in each constituency. To assist in this exercise, a public view template was made available to the public in both English and Kiswahili to guide submissions. On the 3rd and 4th of October 2024, 40,000 copies of the public view templates were also circulated as newspaper pullouts. This template was designated to provide clarity and precision in responses, whether for or against a motion. Number 2, to supplement other means of public input. And 3, to ensure both qualitative and quantitative feedback was captured, which is actually as has been directed by the courts in the past. Mr. Speaker, I just want to indicate that many means were used, including radio, TVs, and other means to publicize this process, including Twitter, or formerly, currently X, or formerly Twitter, and Facebook pages. Mr. Speaker, the public was invited to submit views either in support or in opposition of the special motion or offer other views. Mr. Speaker, I wish to laud Kenyans for their growing consciousness on their civic rights and duties. Mr. Speaker, people participated in various ways, as was witnessed both on electronic and social media, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, many Kenyans who are participated very expressively. Mr. Speaker, I think many of us saw people expressing their views in many ways, some of which I will explain later. However, Mr. Speaker, by the nature of newsmaking, we saw the areas where the views were expressive, but much less in the areas where the views were not that expressive. Mr. Speaker, if you look at the report, and I want to download the parliamentary team, they have even captured photos of members of the public giving their views in constituencies very peacefully. But Mr. Speaker, as I want to repeat, that by the very nature of newsmaking, what we will see are the dramatic scenes. And those we saw, I don't think it is shame as such, it's their right, and they can share. Mr. Speaker, I wish to indicate I wish to report that based on all that, over 200,000 responses were received, of which 65.1% supported the motion, while 33.81% opposed the motion, and 1.09% offered neutral or other alternative views. Mr. Speaker, some of the members in contributing have actually alluded to some of those alternative views. I've heard the Speaker right before me talking about the issue that Kenya has very many pressing issues. Mr. Speaker, indeed it is true, Kenya has many pressing issues, and as a House, we are already seized of those issues and are indeed already dealing with some of those issues. One of those issues that the Parliament has raised is the issue of education, the education system, and we have called the CS for education more than 2 times to deal with that issue. Again, on the health issue, we have also invited the CS for health, amongst other officials. So indeed the House can chew and walk at the same time. Mr. Speaker, when a motion is brought of this magnitude, Parliament, by its own standing orders, must stop everything else and give priority to this motion. And that is why Parliament stopped all its business on Thursday and focused on this, and all members of Parliament went to their constituencies to deal with this issue. Mr. Speaker, I wish to indicate that given that this is a very special public participation process, a first of its kind, Mr. Speaker, since the Constitution was promulgated, there were some challenges, but which did not affect the overall product of public participation. Mr. Speaker, Some of those challenges were as follows. Mr. Speaker, there was political interference at public forums such as Bomas of Kenya and Murang'a. Mr. Speaker, there was violent disruptions in areas like Olkalau, Kipipiri, and Nyeri Town. Mr. Speaker,
so indeed the House can chew and walk at the same time. Mr. Speaker, when a motion is brought of
there
this
was
magnitude,
incomplete or unclear submission, including forms without identifying information or contradictory responses. Mr. Speaker, there was low turnout in some constituencies due to insecurity, such as in Bora. Mr. Speaker, public expectation for monetary compensation for participation was also experienced. Mr. Speaker, there was late submission of forms and memorandum in some instances. There were threats of violence towards officers and inappropriate language in some email submissions. And Mr. Speaker, there was pressure from some constituencies such as Olkalau and Kipipiri for officers to declare results prematurely. On the whole, Mr. Speaker, most places in the country went on uninterrupted. And the results that I just indicated to you, Mr. Speaker, are based on that. Mr. Speaker, because of time and I would like other members to speak, I would want to invite members to look at the report that has been tabled by the House Business Committee. Mr. Speaker, I'll just speak very briefly on my own account. Mr. Speaker, I wish to indicate on my own account as a member of Suba North constituency that what we are going through post-2010 constitution, I want to agree with the honorable member that has spoken and said that it's a very important process because indeed it is. Mr. Speaker, it is a defining moment constitutionally and a first of its kind since 2010. It is both a legal and a political process. Mr. Speaker, the Supreme Court in the Sonkos case confirmed that impeachment is not just about civil liability or criminal culpability, but it's about accountability, political governance, as well as policy and political responsibility. Mr. Speaker, I'll speak very briefly to that in the end, but I want to speak to the issue of grounds. I'll be very brief, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there are 3 grounds that have been given under Article 150 of the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, I want to speak to the issue, the 3rd ground, which is gross misconduct. Mr. Speaker, I have actually looked at the Constitution and there is no definition of gross misconduct. I have looked at our laws and there is no definition of gross misconduct. Mr. Speaker, Black's Law Dictionary defines gross misconduct as a dereliction of duty, unlawful or improper behavior. Mr. Speaker, on that account alone, virtually every ground that has been stipulated here would amount to gross misconduct. Mr. Speaker, speaking as a governance expert, perhaps it's one of the areas we may want to change in future in the Constitution. Because I was saddened when Nancy Baraza was removed from office for just touching somebody's nose. Only. Even pinching. Yeah? Touching somebody's nose. So, Mr. Speaker, what I would like to say, Mr. Speaker, is based on these grounds. It is easy to impeach. Mr. Speaker, if you just had me 1 minute, please. Mr. Speaker.
Okay, you have 1.5.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would just want to say that I've been by nature, I know I'm a very tough person, but by very nature, I'm also very empathetic. And I've been sympathizing a lot with the Deputy Speaker, especially, Deputy President, sorry, especially when he prays, because I'm also a prayerful person. But Mr. Speaker, I would want the Deputy Speaker to learn from this.
Deputy President.
Sorry, Deputy President. Sorry, I don't know why I keep going to Honorable Gladys. Mr. Speaker, In my book, which I've just released, Rego Beregt, Principle 9, the power of words, taming the tongue. Mr. Speaker, if the deputy president had been quiet, he would have carried many people in this house. But he did not tame the tongue. And every time he spoke, he's just showing further and further division of the country. And I feel sad as a country that many people, even my friends, because I have many friends in Central Kenya, who are calling me, are not calling me from a governance perspective. They are telling me, please save us Mount Kenya. Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when will we ever reach a point as a country when we look at governance issues and not ethnic parochial issues that have divided the country for a long time, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, I do empathize with the Deputy President, and I wish the hand he extended to the President, he had done it much earlier. I would want Mr. Speaker, I hope he learns from the experience of Coriolanus of ancient Rome, who had won many battles, and his fame preceded him. But when he got into in politics, his mouth brought him down. Mr. Speaker, I support.
Gladys Sholay, not information. There's nobody on the floor. Speak. You wanted to speak.
Okay, but just allow me to correct one issue that has been raised twice on the issue of Nancy Baraza. Nancy Baraza was alleged to have pinched the nose of someone. It was never confirmed. There was the CCTV footage did not reveal it, and she was found with no guilt on that point. So as a woman leader, I want to correct that. Nancy Baraza served this country faithfully. So let us correct the Hansard. Thank you. Honorable Speaker, I can proceed.
Governance issues and not ethnic parochial issues that have divided the country.
Honorable Speaker, thank you very much. Mr. Speaker, and again, before I proceed to support this motion, allow me to clarify just one.
He had done it much earlier.
One issue. I have been accused by the Deputy President of bias, indicating that I cannot preside over these impeachment proceedings because I am biased. I want to confirm that when
in politics, his mouth brought him down. Mr. Speaker, I support.
Okay, thank you. I want to confirm that I'm not biased at all. When I made the statement...
Not information. There's nobody on the floor. Speak. You wanted to speak.
Okay, but just allow me to correct one issue that has been raised twice on the issue of Nancy Baraza. Nancy Baraza was alleged to have pinched the nose of someone. It was never confirmed. There was the CCTV footage did not reveal it, and she was found with no guilt on that point. So as a woman leader, I want to correct that. Nancy Baraza served this country faithfully. So let us correct the Hansard. Thank you.
Go on.
Honorable Speaker, I can proceed.
Go on.
Yes, I am. Okay. Honorable Speaker, thank you very much. And again, before I proceed to support this motion, allow me to clarify just one issue. I have been accused by the Deputy President of bias, indicating that I cannot preside over these impeachment proceedings because I am biased. I want to confirm that when Okay, thank you. I want to confirm that I'm not biased at all. When I made the statements that I did make,